Hello everybody, we're going to take a look at the 860 V14, a light or moderate stability shoe. It sees some really big changes. It's still Fresh Foam X, but we have softer underfoot, a bit firmer below, and on the medial side. It also sees the innovative stability plane, a hardened EVA plate, which is longer on the medial side than on the lateral side. So we have no posts here at all. It sits on a relatively broad 90 millimeter heel, 80 millimeter midfoot, 110 millimeter forefoot, and the weight should be approximately 10.45 ounces, 296 grams in my US 9, which is a slight drop in weight from the predecessor, while we gained 4 millimeters of stack height in the front, 2 millimeters at the heel. So we're now an 8 millimeter drop instead of a 10 millimeter drop. And the full stack height, 35.5 millimeters heel, 27.5 millimeters forefoot. Okay, so if you're somebody who typically runs neutral shoes, do not tune out, because this 860 V14 for me as a neutral type shoe runner is excellent. One of the best kind of slightly stabilized shoes I've ever experienced, with no sensation of kind of overdone in support at the arch, yet it's plenty stable. After I share some impressions from the run, we're going to get into some comparisons. The New Balance 880 V14, the 880 V13, Saucony's Ride 17, and the Asics Gel Cayano 30. Okay, let's talk about the ride from the run here. Going about 950 pace, getting over a back problem, and the stability here without ever overdoing it is just about right. So what we've got is a lot of actual energy from Fresh Foam. Usually I found Fresh Foam either too firm or too soft, and I'm attributing that to our stability plane plate, which gives us some oomph off the front, yet the cushioning is very deep all over. So while this isn't the lightest shoe, it's feeling so far like a really solid daily training option. Haven't brought them up to pace. I think they'll do just fine, but combining somewhat soft foam, not as soft 1080, not as firm as the 880 V14, you get a really fine combination. Okay, let's talk about the fit of our 860 V14. It's a true to size fit with lots of room really in the toe box, because mainly the slight stretch of our knit upper. There you can see the toe box room just about right. The laces go through real smoothly. You can tighten it down quite a ways, as I have, given my narrower foot, without any bite. The real action here, though, I think, in terms of what makes the upper really good, despite the kind of stretchy knit in front, is the rear construction. You can see that darker blue. The collar is much more stiffer, not bothersome, but stiffer. So it really locks down the rear of the foot. Relatively comfortable as well, decently, very comfortable actually, without being over plush. And of course, the fit is helped by the support of the ride. In other words, if you have a sloppy upper, even on a firm midsole, you're going to move around. And here we have a great upper on a stable but not overdone midsole. The red line, as before, is that thin EVA plate. I'll call it a plate that extends from the heel all the way forward on the medial side. Plus you have the vertical sidewalls, pretty common in a stability shoe or support shoe. And then on the other side, you have less of a length of plate, just enough to keep the landing from being mushy, because this is relatively soft foam, and that foam being soft, unlike the 1080, a little firm in the 1080, a little softer than the 880 most recent versions, that plate keeps things from compressing too much. If you're a neutral runner, zero notice of any overdone arch. There's no post here. It really runs as a medial shoe, as a neutral shoe as well as a stability. I don't really need stability, others will have to comment on that, but I think it's a great sort of all-around compromise. A bit of support from the plate, not too much. I'm gonna keep going here. So, while not the lightest of shoes, what you really notice off the front is a combination of soft foam and a kick, if you will, from the plate or the stability plane. And at the heel, you tend to heel strike slower paces, as I do. You get a quick kick forward to transition, even though platform is pretty wide. 80 millimeters at midfoot, 90 millimeters at the heel. So you've got a really nice combination here of forgiving cushion and some kick without the plate being over aggressive or stiff, because this is a flexible shoe. So that makes it, I think, a really fine daily trainer of the more moderate pace variety. Certainly, I think would be a really good long run shoe if you want some support underfoot and a comfortable upper with some room. Also, I think great beginner's choice. If you're confused about pronation versus non-pronation control, and I think a lot of times pronation shoes are overprescribed, this is a good option that should cover both bases, if you will. Comparisons: the 880 V14, the 1080 V13, Saucony's Ride 17, and the Cayano 30. So the 880 V14, the latest edition. So it is lower stack height, 30-22. Also an 8 millimeter drop. It's a single foam, whereas before the 880s had a dual foam setup. The fresh foam here is a bit firmer than, or about the same really as the firmer foam in our 860. It is considerably lighter, 8.75 ounces, 248 grams in a US 9. It has a more, I would say, performance snugger fitting upper, a little bit less relaxed, a little bit more locked down. It leans more up tempo. It's plenty stable. It's called out as a neutral shoe, but I would say it's a plenty stable neutral shoe due to its firm foam, relatively broad platform. It's also stiffer than our 860, as you can see here, so it's a bit snappier. So this is your up-tempo flavor in the family of Fresh Foam X. Longo V6, $165, is New Balance's other stability option with Fresh Foam X. It features a full stability plane plate that's equal on both sides of the shoe and has 2 millimeters more forefoot stack height. The 1080 V13 from New Balance, and this is definitely a neutral shoe. It has foam that is even softer, I think, than the top layer of foam here in our 860. It is a single density of foam. This is a very soft neutral shoe. I didn't get along too well with it. It was a half size up from my normal in a women's, actually, so a B width, and the upper just didn't hold me nearly as well as the 860 did. And the ride was really only suitable for very easy runs, just way too soft for me. It is lighter by more than, almost a little more than an ounce, which is interesting. But of course, it doesn't have the dual density foam or the plate, which adds weight, the glue, and so on and so forth. And I think the upper is lighter as well. It comes in at 9.28 ounces, 263 grams in a US 9 versus about 10.5 ounces for our 860. I'll pick the 860 any day. The Saucony Guide 17 is what I call a pure inherent stability shoe. It's a single foam, a little bit similar, I guess, to what we have in our firmer layer, It gets its stability from its sheer platform width and also the geometry here on the medial side. It is considerably broader on the ground at 105 heel, 85 midfoot, 120 forefoot. So that is 15 millimeters wider at the heel, 5 millimeters wider at the midfoot, and 10 millimeters wider at the forefoot. So this is a super wide shoe. Um, it I don't I kind of prefer our 860 here. It's a little more agile feeling. The plate adds into the mix. The upper on the guide is similar in being a broad fit. It is even somewhat roomier than the 860. This is a shoe, I think, for broader feet no matter what. In terms of its flex, it's quite flexible. Not quite, maybe not quite as flexible as the 860. It's also $140. And it's a good choice, especially if you want a broader platform and a lot of kind of looser fitting room, even though the hold is really quite good. Finally, the Asics Gel Cayano 30, another purely inherently stable shoe and a huge change from prior Cayanos, which used various elements, if you will, to achieve stability in terms of plastics, side pieces. Here, they use it's a foam actually. It's not really any firm. It's actually softer maybe than the main midsole foam to allow you to roll forward. And you need to be able to roll in this shoe because what we have is a much higher stack height here of 40 millimeter heel, 30 millimeter forefoot. So that means we are, let me look here, 4.5 millimeters higher than our 860 at the heel and 2.5 millimeters at the forefoot. So it's a 10 millimeter drop versus an 8 for our 860. What really distinguishes it is the breadth of the platform here. We've got 10 millimeters more width at heel, midfoot, and forefoot than our New Balance. So this is a very broad platform. It's a little bit lumbering, even though it isn't particularly heavy. It's got the Flight Foam Blast Plus foam. It's not as flexible due to that extra stack height. You can see it does have more cushioning, no question about it. And in some ways you could say the cushioning is a bit more consistent because it's really all a single foam. In terms of its upper, it's really just a more polished upper, I think, than the 860. The front is as roomy, but it's a little better held. You can see the toe bumper is substantial. Lace up is really nice. It does cost $20 more. So this is the shoe if you want quite a bit more, if you want quite a bit of stability and you want a super broad platform. I wouldn't call it as much fun to run as our the 860, but it's a very solid option. A few final conclusions for our 860 v14. It's my favorite fresh foam shoe to date. They've either been too firm or too soft. Here, by taking two types of firmness or density of foam, softer here on the kind of upper layer that comes down on the lateral side, and firmer going around and giving you the support without being ridiculously firm like a post, adding in the EVA stability plate, essentially a plate that's asymmetrical, longer, more extensive on the medial side for a touch of guidance support as you need it, and shorter on the lateral side for the landing with more softer foam. You get a really good combination here for a daily trainer that kind of bridges the gap between neutral and stability. I personally, as I said earlier, can't stand posts and rails and all that kind of stuff kind of getting in the way, and at the arch on the medial side there is absolutely none of that here. So it runs very much like a neutral shoe, and if you do need that stability, it's there. So in an age where posts and rails and more overt stability is going away, this bridges kind of a nice gap, makes the shoe flexible enough, lively enough to be a really solid daily trainer. If there's one knock on the shoe, I would say its weight, which, you know, at 10.5 ounces, US 9 is kind of up there. I wish this shoe was under 10, but at 140, it's a very solid value, a very versatile trainer, a great choice for beginners who can't figure out if, or don't really know if they need how much pronation support, or if they're neutral. They won't get in trouble here either way. So it's good for that. And it's good as a all-around, very pleasant riding, all-around daily trainer. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to have our full multi-tester review of the New Balance 860 V14 real soon over on RoadTrailRun.com. The shoe was provided at no cost by New Balance for this review. Have a great run.